And welcome into the Upside Sports Network and Upside Sports Talk. Appreciate you guys joining us on a Wednesday afternoon. Hopefully you guys are having some fun out there and just enjoying the great day. But there's a lot going on in the world of sports. Opening day is right around the corner. That happens tomorrow. No, I don't officially recognize the international series that we see over the last few years that MLB has tried to do to generate interest in the game abroad. To me, opening day is still opening day, and that's tomorrow. So excited to see what teams ultimately look like. A lot of changes on a lot of rosters. We discuss that every single night on our MLB Hot Stove Daily show, so I encourage you guys to check that one out. We'll do it again tonight. We'll discuss our power rankings leading in to the 2025 season. On today's show, we'll discuss quite a bit about the NFL free agency, what's going on with Aaron Rodgers, Russell Wilson, the signing of Stefon Diggs to the New England Patriots anyway. We'll talk about the state of the Dallas Cowboys and what they can do in the draft, what their direction should be as an organization. Talk a little bit about Jerry Jones and what changes need to happen in that front office or lack thereof. But a lot to get to today. And one other thing I did want to talk about is the NBA playoffs. They're right around the corner now, just a few days away from that beginning here. NHL season winding down as well. We'll touch on a little bit of the Stanley Cup playoffs as well. Talk a little bit about Luka and the Lakers, LeBron, and their title chances as well. So be sure to hit that like, hit that thumbs up on the video. Goes a long way to helping us out. Want to thank you guys for joining us. So let's start anyway with NFL free agency. Want to touch a little bit on the signing of Russell Wilson, signing a one-year deal with the New York Giants. A little bit surprising that he decided to go to the Giants. It seemed like for a while there he was destined to go to the Cleveland Browns. I thought that would have been a good signing for them. Understandably, the quarterback room there is tenuous at best with Deshaun Watson. Doesn't sound like he's ever going to play another snap for the Browns. And honestly, I wouldn't blame them if they just said, "The heck with it, just don't come back. We'll try to get out of this deal, morals clause, whatever the case may be." But I think Deshaun Watson has played his last down for the Cleveland Browns. With that being said, I do think there are plenty of options for them to go out there and try to add a veteran starting quarterback to that room. Joe Flacco had a nice run there when he was there. Um, they've had kind of a revolving door though over the last few years here. I do think there's an opportunity here if with Russell Wilson now going to the Giants, Aaron Rodgers could look at the Browns and say, "Hey, maybe you could jack up the price at least for the Pittsburgh Steelers, or maybe I just don't want to play for Pittsburgh and I'd rather be the quarterback that's known to elevate this version of the Cleveland Browns to a playoff team." I would say at best is what this roster is right now. It's a very good roster. It needs a solid quarterback at the top, no doubt, but I'm not sure they're a Super Bowl team as currently constructed. I think this is a team that's in a very similar boat to a team like the San Francisco 49ers this past year, a team like the Dallas Cowboys in years past, where they're very, very good. They have the talent, but nobody's going to really take them seriously as a Super Bowl contender because they know they're going to have some struggles there. 49ers, you have their doubts as far as being able to stay healthy, the question marks around Brock Purdy. The Dallas Cowboys, can they ever win a playoff game that matters, first and foremost? Can they even get there is the bigger question. And then the Cleveland Browns just kept getting in their own way. So, um, you know, the signing or the trade to bring him in, first and foremost, was a terrible acquisition to bring in Deshaun Watson when they did. And then giving him a fully guaranteed contract, completely inexcusable by that front office. And I get why they tried to make it work. They wanted to save a little bit of face. But at a certain point, you got to realize it's not working. I think they finally realized that at this point, and I do think they're going to move on from him. But is this team a Super Bowl contending team if they bring in Aaron Rodgers? No. Do I think they make the playoffs? I think there's a good chance of it. So we'll see which direction they decide to go with their quarterback room. Pittsburgh, I think that's a more interesting one there because I think Aaron Rodgers is pretty much it right now or bust for them. Say they don't sign Aaron Rodgers. Their next best option is what? Jameis Winston's now off the board. They could go with, I don't know, another rookie, go with a late round or a first round pick, early second round pick. That's not exactly inspiring a lot of confidence. Remember what they did with Kenny Pickett, a back half of the first round pick, a quarterback that wasn't very high on many boards going into the year, elevated his draft status into a late first round pick, maybe a mid first round pick by the end of his draft year, and ultimately was drafted by the Pittsburgh Steelers. And he wasn't terrible, but he's not a franchise quarterback. He's a game manager, more of a backup at this point, as we've seen him be traded by two different teams now. So we'll have to see what the future holds for Pickett. But for the Pittsburgh Steelers, it does look like they need to bring in Aaron Rodgers because I do not think they'll go the route that's necessary for a rookie quarterback to take over the reins here. I don't think there's the next Ben Roethlisberger in this draft. I do think that Shedeur Sanders is a very good quarterback. If by some miracle he's available at their pick, they should absolutely snatch him up. Tomlin has a way of being able to manage big personalities there, and I think he could handle it. I do think there is some back channel negotiating going on behind the scenes that we haven't heard through the NFL draft about Shedeur Sanders, where he wants to go. I don't think Dion is necessarily steering him to a certain spot, but I guarantee you he's coaching him on how to go through these interviews, how to get certain teams interested or disinterested in you. So, for instance, say you didn't like the team at number 1, didn't like the team at number 2, but you really wanted to get to, say, pick 12, 13, somewhere in there in the draft. Then you have those really great interviews with those other teams. Then you have these articles come out about how you're cocky in these interviews. You're nonchalant with your answers in these interviews, that you're not taking it seriously. Those are the types of things we've seen. That, I think, is very much manufactured by Sanders and the Deion Sanders camp. I still think Shedeur Sanders is going to be a very good quarterback, highly accurate quarterback that's played behind very poor offensive line play with absolutely zero run game. Once you get to the NFL, you're going to have to be able to stay accurate, but I think his offensive line is going to be leaps and bounds better than what he had at any point in college ranks. Running game, don't even get me started. They didn't have any running game in Colorado. As far as the wideouts, they certainly had some great skill position players. So I would say wherever you're trying to draft him, say you draft him, I'm just going to throw out a random team. Say they're trying to steer themselves to the Dallas Cowboys for whatever reason. That would be a decent situation for him because they have some decent weapons on the outside with CeeDee Lamb, but they are looking for more. They need more offensive line help. You want to make sure you have some good outside help there for them. So I'd be looking to try to get to a situation where he has some good weapons on the outside. And I think pretty much any of the offensive lines that we see across the NFL would be an upgrade over what he's had to deal with in the college ranks. So we'll have to see where he ends up going, but I do think he is trying to steer his draft somewhere. So that's kind of line item number one for me as far as Russell Wilson, the fallout there. I don't think that this move precludes them from adding a Shedeur Sanders. Maybe he does want to go for the Giants. Who knows? I think Shedeur would learn quite well behind a quarterback like Russ to try to learn how to handle a team. Mature in New York, be able to get adapted to the city, all those kinds of things. I think that'd be invaluable for him. So I do think there is a world where we see them have both Russell Wilson and Shedeur Sanders on this same team. And there are multiple reports out there that say their stance on a need for a quarterback has not changed with the signing of Russell Wilson. Now, as I mentioned, there's a few other signings around the NFL. We saw Stefon Diggs go to the Patriots anyway. 3 years, $69 million deal with a $26 million guarantee. Essentially, this functions as a 1-year guaranteed deal with 2 years tacked on at the end, non-guaranteed. Overall, I think he's still a good wide receiver. Do I think he's nearly as good as he once was? No. Do I think he's as even keel as he once was when he was with the Minnesota Vikings? No. I think he's become a little bit of a diva wide receiver, something we really haven't seen since Antonio Brown at the NFL level. Didn't really put them in that conversation. You thought Diggs was kind of the model citizen for a while there when he was with the Vikings. Made it known he wanted to move out. They found a trade partner with the Bills, had some good years there, rubbed the quarterback wrong there as far as Josh Allen, unhappy with targets, all that kind of thing. And again, we saw it this year as well with C.J. Stroud. So I'm just not sure that this was the right addition for them long term. I do think they need to still draft some more skill position players there. But to me, this at least gives them a solid target on the outside for them to be able to work with. As far as the other free agents that we've seen sign over the last few days anyway, free agency to me this year is a little bit of a wash. We discussed this in last week's show where the NFL free agency was all a bunch of overpaid players, underperforming players, or guys who are injured. I'll put it that way. Guys that aren't going to bring you a whole lot of value. There's no real value bargain basement deals here in the market. Now, every single time we say this, there is the one caveat that a 1-year deal is almost never a bad signing. And while Stefon Diggs essentially functions as a 1-year deal, I'm not sure he's the right mentality or personality to bring into that locker room there with a young quarterback. So we'll have to see how Drake May handles it there, but I do think he's got a bright future there in New England. Just a matter of how they ultimately build out that roster around him. But we'll see what ultimately happens. All right. Want to get on to the Los Angeles Lakers and the NBA, looking at the title chances. So let's go ahead and flip on to that here in just a moment. The Los Angeles Lakers entered the season with some of the lowest title odds in the entire Western Conference of the available playoff teams. Mainly because they were relying on an injured Anthony Davis, they were relying on an aging LeBron James, and not much else on that roster. The D'Angelo Russell saga started the offseason. Maybe they trade him and find another star to partner with those two. Ultimately, it didn't happen. And so they entered the season and they were hoping to get out of the play-in, maybe snake one of the 5 or 6 seeds and just make a nice run in the postseason, maybe catch lightning in a bottle like they had before. That didn't really happen up to the trade for Luka Doncic. Enter Nico Harrison. Nico Harrison approaches Rob Pelinka of the Los Angeles Lakers and says, hey, we have questions about Luka's ability to stay on the court, his conditioning, his ability to really elevate from where he is currently. And so we are of the mind that we would like to go ahead and trade him before we have to pay him. We have real interest in Anthony Davis. What would it take to get done? I'm pretty sure that's exactly how the conversation went because he literally laid all his cards on the table and got almost nothing in return for his best asset in Luka Doncic. That being said, Rob Pelinka took advantage of that situation like he should and didn't give up every piece that was necessary in that deal. Luka is a generational talent. We've talked about this for years. Absolutely. Could he be in better shape? Sure. Could he be better off the court, avoiding drinking, those kinds of things? Sure. Could he be a little bit more of a gym rat in the offseason? Sure. Has he had his fair share of injuries? Sure. The injury that he had in Christmas, could that have been related to some of the conditioning issues that they had? Sure. But to a certain extent, even with the issues that we just talked about, you still have a generational talent. A player, even with those faults, is still one of the top 2 or 3 players in the NBA right now. And he's yours and has shown no signs of wanting to leave. Is currently signed until 2026, 2027. And he's eligible for more money than anybody could ever pay him. By the way, $100 million more than what another team could have signed him for in free agency. And sure, maybe he would look to broaden his horizons and go to the Los Angeles Lakers, but he would be sacrificing that $100 million to be able to do so. There's a real incentive to try to get that Supermax and then demand a trade. And then at that point, you could still trade him. Now, sure, the front office for the Dallas Mavericks thought, hey, his value won't be that. He'll have this huge onerous contract. We won't be able to move him. Are you kidding me? Even with the abilities or the lack of conditioning issues that he has, even with the drinking that you're worried about, even with the workout issues that you have for him in the offseason, even with all of that, argue those all you want till you're blue in the face, Nico Harrison. The fact remains that he still is one of the top 3 players in the NBA, even with those faults. Just imagine if you ever ticked him off enough to maybe, hey, trade him away to a rival team and have him come back into your building, light your camp on fire like he did the Minnesota Timberwolves in the postseason and just absolutely cooked Rudy Gobert. I mean, and that's with Luka on 2 banged up knees that he was able to do that. I mean, at a certain point, you just got to recognize game and just say, hey, man, I might not like how you do it. I don't like how our organization is so centric around you. I want to be the top decision maker. I want to be the one this team revolves around, not you. And to a certain extent, you have to realize that your best option to win, as you say, both now and in the future, is with that generational talent. But they trade him away to the Lakers. The LeBron and the Luka Lakers, anyway, look like they're title contenders. They went from a play-in team all the way up to, I believe, they're number 5 right now, 4 or 5 in the Western Conference. Right now they sit at 5. They're a game out of 3rd place. They've been all the way up as high as number 2 recently. The Lakers have lost 3 straight. They're 3-7 in their last 10, but that's without LeBron on the floor the last couple of weeks. I do expect them to kind of have a nice runway here to the end of the season and kind of get that number 2 seed once again. But according to most books out there anyway, they have the 4th best title odds. OKC number 1, Boston number 2, Cleveland number 3, Lakers 4, and Denver 5. I think that's pretty accurate as far as the teams. I would mix up that order though. I'm just not a believer as much in the Oklahoma City Thunder. I think Luka would have been the reason why the Dallas Mavericks would have knocked off the Oklahoma City Thunder on their way to another NBA Finals. I don't necessarily have faith that the Denver Nuggets can hold things down like they have over the last few weeks here. I think the team that we saw in the beginning of the season is more the team we're going to see from the Nuggets this year. I think Jokic has another great season in him right now. I think there's a good chance he wins the MVP once again. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is going to be in that in contention for that one as well. Jason Tatum deserves to get his flowers for the work he's done this year. Giannis and the way the Bucks turned around their season, he deserves some flowers. But the Lakers, to me, the addition of Luka Doncic completely changed their outlook as an organization. A team that entered the season probably a play-in team, maybe a 5 or 6 seed at best, currently elevated themselves as the 2nd best title odds in the Western Conference, and I think it's completely legitimate. You have 2 all-world players in LeBron James when he's healthy, and that's why I think he really took off the last couple of weeks is to stay healthy. I'm sure he had some type of an injury that he was trying to, save his legs for, try to rehab from, that kind of a thing. But I think primarily this was a rest break for LeBron James. We saw him in the days leading up to his availability once again, that he was running full court, doing incredible slam dunks on the practice floor. He looks very, very healthy. He looks energized. and Luka looks very slim. He looks a lot more engaged defensively. He's never going to be a truly great defender. He'll be a good post defender at times. He'll be a great artist as far as steal artist, taking the ball away, but he'll give up his fair share of turnovers as well. But when you have a shot maker, a legendary performer, competitor, a Kobe-like mentality going to the Lakers for literally pennies on the dollar, you can see why the Lakers now are among the title favorites in all of the NBA. Now, as far as the other teams that I mentioned, I do have my concerns about Oklahoma City. Even though there's no real size with the Lakers, LeBron and Luka are going to be able to slice up that team however they need to. I'm not necessarily worried about the size problem that the Lakers have because Oklahoma City also has that same size problem. The other title favorites here, the Boston Celtics, I still think they're the best team in the Eastern Conference, even as great a season as Cleveland has had. I just think Boston's going to turn it on to another level once we get to the postseason, and I think they're going to elevate both Brown and Tatum to heights that we haven't seen them play at before. Their bench is better than it ever has been. Peyton Pritchard and White Newey got 40 pieces in the same game earlier this year. They're a very well-balanced team. They have some great depth. I think they're going to have to change up their front court a little bit as far as their bigs here in the next couple of years. But other than that, this is a team ready to try to repeat once again. They are probably the best team in the Eastern Conference. Do I think they beat the Oklahoma City Thunder? I do. I think I like their wing depth and Kristaps Porzingis a lot better than what the Thunder have with Holmgren and Hartenstein. As far as the Lakers, I think that would be a really challenging series because I do think Luka would be frustrated to a certain extent by the size on the wing that the Celtics do present. But here's the thing. The Mavericks, when Luka was there, your second best player around the same height anyway, around that same ability, is P.J. Washington. Kyrie Irving, much smaller player. They were able to put bigger defenders on him, change things up. Danny White was great as well. Drew Holiday was great on Kyrie Irving. And they were able to get into Kyrie's head a little bit going back into Boston. I do think that has kind of solved itself, though, now. I think Kyrie's gotten over it. We saw that as evidenced by the game earlier this year in Boston with Kyrie going in there without Luka after the trade and getting the job done. Great job by Luka and the Mavericks, or by Kyrie and the Mavericks anyway. But as far as LeBron and the Lakers going up against the Boston Celtics, I think having two ball-dominant players like the Celtics have in Tatum and Brown, like the Lakers have in LeBron and Luka, I think that's going to be a very good head-to-head matchup. Do I think the ceiling is a little bit higher for the Lakers with Luka Doncic? I do. I think they can elevate their game a little bit more. I think the size will really wear them down. I think they're probably a year away from being a really good title contending team as long as LeBron still shows this level of viability in the game and doesn't start to show signs of slowing down even more, which is a hard thing to do with with a player over 40. But this is still a very good team. I like what the Lakers have done. Obviously, best trade of the entire world in my opinion. Best trade in NBA history, best trade in MLB history, NFL history, easiest slam dunk win for the Lakers, worst trade in history for the Dallas Mavericks or any professional sports franchise. And yes, I do realize the Babe Ruth trade. I do realize the Herschel Walker trade. This one is worse. All right. Some of the other title contenders, like I mentioned, the Cleveland Cavaliers, I really like their size. I think they'll play well. I do think they'll get to the Eastern Conference Final. I just wonder about their ability to get past Boston because I do think they will turn it up a notch. But would not surprise me if Cleveland really elevated because they do have Donovan Mitchell. I like what the backcourt looks like there, the front court with Mobley and Allen. I just wonder about their wing depth. They did make the acquisition of DeAndre Hunter to add some size on the wing to be able to contend with teams like Boston with Tatum and Brown on the wing. We'll have to see how it turns out in the postseason. The last team I mentioned that had some real chance to win the title this year is the Denver Nuggets. I still like Jokic, don't get me wrong. I just don't think that the team around him is good enough to be able to get out of the first couple of rounds of the postseason. I don't think they get to the Western Conference Finals. I think they get bounced long before that. But other than that, I do think Jokic is on track to get close to winning another MVP. We'll have to see who they give it to. Voters do tend to get voter fatigue, if you will, the more and more they vote for the same player year after year. All right. One last thing I wanted to get to today anyway, before we get to some opening day talk, is a little bit about the NHL. NHL playoffs are right around the corner. Just want to look up their standings for you guys. So you guys can see where everything kind of stacks up right now. Eastern Conference, the Atlantic Division is an absolute dogfight. Just look at that. Toronto, Florida, and Tampa all within 2 points of each other. That's going to be a great 2-3 matchup. Whoever ends up facing each other in that first round is going to be fantastic. Whoever wins the division is going to have a really, really nice playoff matchup against probably the Ottawa Senators. I like that matchup for whoever wins this division, gets them out of that first round. In the Metro, it's all about Ovechkin for the Washington Capitals. They have 103 points. They are a good team. I just don't think they're nearly as good as their record indicates. I think Ovi's having a great season as far as goal scoring, but there's no dynamic defense. There's no dynamic goaltending. There's no dynamic offense for this team. They just do a really good job at doing the most important thing, which is winning games. During the regular season, that's fine. Once you get to the postseason, once you get to the Stanley Cup final, guess what ratchets up? The intensity. And I'm not sure while they're playing a winning brand of hockey for the regular season, that their skill is good enough to measure up against the best in let alone the Eastern Conference, but the Western Conference as well. Carolina, love what they did as far as kind of adding and subtracting. I know the Mikko Rantanen thing kind of threw everybody through a loop, but overall I'd say if you took Natchez and the pieces that they traded for Rantanen and brought in Stankoven and some first-round picks and other talents as well, I would say you're in a better spot overall for the future of your franchise. Sure. Are you better in the short term here after losing Rantanen? No. Obviously, Rantanen's the better player, but I do think they're set up well for success. I think this year they're probably going to be a little bit short of a Stanley Cup final. If that's your goal, you would have tried to hold on to Mikko and see if you could make it work, and just use that money that you save in Mikko and try to sign somebody else in free agency this offseason. It's tough to just see where they're at right now as far as their organization. They didn't want to run the risk of losing another important piece via free agency. They're at 90 points right now. They'll be in that 2-3 matchup that looks like they'll be locked up against the Devils. I think they're in a good spot, but I'm not sure they win the Stanley Cup final as currently constructed. I think they're set up for better abilities next year, and we'll have to see what they ultimately turn in those first-round picks that they got in the Rantanen deal for, whether they draft and develop those talented pieces or they trade them for another landmark piece like a Mikko Rantanen. But I would say that if you took the pieces before the Rantanen trade from Colorado and see what they got afterward, you'd say they still got better based off of the trade itself. But I think Natchez would be a better piece on this roster as currently constructed. Stankoven's going to be a great player for them, fits really well into that system. But I do think it's a move built for the future of the franchise rather than the now for the Carolina Hurricanes. Wild card, I think it's pretty much sewn up for the Ottawa Senators as the number one. The two, it gets very interesting. You got the Canadiens, Islanders, Rangers, Blue Jackets, and Red Wings. Blue Jackets have just had a rough year, Gaudreau's and everything around that. Tortorella kind of talked a little bit about that in his recent press conference about how it's very difficult to know how to manage this team, to be able to coach this team with all that's gone on, even before the start of the season. And it's been a tough year. I would like to see them get that final wild card spot. I don't think they'll get it done. I think there's just too much going on in the headspace for that team. But I do think one of those other teams, like we mentioned, the Canadiens, Rangers, I don't think the Islanders quite get there. I don't think they have enough games. I think the Rangers are going to be the team that jumps up there a little bit here and gets into that final wild card spot. Western Conference, Jets have clinched a playoff spot, 102 points, but look at how close the division is. Stars have 2 games in hand. Stars did lose a tough game against both the Jets and the Avalanche recently. I think that would have really vaulted them to the top of this division. But right now, with 2 games in hand, 8 points back, I'm not sure there's enough games left in the season for them to get there. 6-2-2 in their last 10. They're a very good team. Love the Rantanen trade. It sounds like Tyler Seguin could be coming back at any point right now. Just a matter of him getting his conditioning back and those kinds of things. As far as Miro Heiskanen goes, I think they're going to need him if they're in that 2-3 matchup with the Colorado Avalanche. Otherwise, I think if the Stars get Miro Heiskanen back for that series against Colorado, I think the Stars go out there and win that series walking away. If they don't have Miro, I think it's going to be a dogfight that I think the Avalanche have a slight edge because of Cal McCarr, McKinnon, etc. And Rantanen's really going to have to step up his game. Sagan's going to have to show he's healthy. Rope's not going to is not going to be able to not going to have the option to disappear in a playoff series. Robertson's going to have to continue to score goals, and that defense is going to have to hold up. Ottinger's going to have to be the better goaltender in that series because, again, this whole goaltending tandem for the Avalanche was revamped mid-season. There's no reason Ottinger shouldn't be the best goalie in that series. And without Miro, he's going to have to stand on his head a little bit with all the offensive talent that the Avalanche possess. But Jets, I do think they're a very good squad. They play a very distinctive style of hockey. I think it plays well during the regular season. I just wonder how repeatable that's going to be to keep that intensity in the playoffs when the other team matches that intensity with you once you get to the postseason. So I do think the Jets are in a good spot. I do not have them as favorites to win the final. In the Pacific, Golden Knights, to me, running away with this one. I do think the Kings are still in the picture. I think Edmonton's very clearly in that 2-3 matchup. But overall, we're going to get a very good series with McDavid versus the Los Angeles Kings. I'm curious to see how that one shakes out. I do think Edmonton's had their fair share of struggles. I'm not sure they'll be able to pull themselves out of the nosedive they took earlier this year. But right now, they're 6-3-1 in their last 10. They're on a decent stretch here. I just want to see them continue to perform at that level or better as we go through the rest of the year. And really, at that point, I think they'd be a better team than the Kings. But at the same point, the Kings are 9-1 in their last 10. They're set up really well for success. But I think if I'm picking any of those teams to get to the Western Conference Final, I would say the Vegas Golden Knights would be my favorite pick. Wild card, Jets and Blues look like it's going to be in round one. I think the Jets win that one going away. Blues, I don't think, have a lot of top-end talent. They do have some games in hand. They could climb a little bit here, but I don't think they have I don't think they have enough firepower there as well. Let's see here. The Wild. What can I say about the Wild? They just got blanked anyway by the Dallas Stars. They're a good team. They have some good pieces. I'm not sure the sum of their parts is good enough to compete with the other teams that I just mentioned. I think they're very clearly the seventh best team out of all of those. The Jets, Stars, Avalanche, Knights, Oil, and Kings as well. I think they're very clearly the seventh best team. And then some teams looking on the outside looking in. Calgary Flames have not played well over the last stretch of games here. They do have a couple of games in hand. They're 6-2-2 in their last 10. They play a very distinctive style as well as far as a tough, hard-nosed game. Skill position can be a little bit difficult for them to overcome, so I wonder about their ability to win in the postseason. But I do think the Flames are going to be right there until the end. They're 4 points back of that final wildcard spot with 3 games in hand. They should be right there by the end of the season. We'll have to see if they get that final wildcard spot. And then the Vancouver Canucks. They just don't have enough offensive firepower. They're not consistent enough offensively for me to be a real threat in the Western Conference. Utah Hockey Club, they're even further back. I just think there's too little time left for them to get over the mountain that they need to really climb here. But, I think your best contenders for the Stanley Cup on the Western Conference, I'd say Stars, Avs, Knights, and Jets in that order. On the Eastern Conference side of things, I would probably say Florida 1, Tampa 2, Carolina 3, Toronto 4, Washington 5. And I get it. Washington's had a great regular season. I just don't trust them once they get to the postseason. All right. Appreciate you guys joining us. We'll go ahead and talk a little bit about our opening day segment here in just a moment, but I want to invite you guys to hit that like and subscribe. Tonight we will have our MLB Power Rankings update. We'll do that weekly for you guys here on Wednesday nights, so be sure to join us for that one. Hit that like and subscribe. Hit that thumbs up. It goes a long way to helping us out. Really do appreciate you guys joining us. So let's go ahead and talk a little bit about some opening day baseball. A lot of things to talk about as we go through it. And welcome back to Upside Sports Talk. My name is Michael. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe if you haven't already. MLB opening day is right around the corner, literally tomorrow. Tonight we have our MLB Power Rankings coming out. Be sure to join us for that live as well. But a lot to get to. A lot of injuries coming out over the last 48 hours. A lot of interesting roster decisions. Great video anyway of Cam Smith getting the call to be on the opening day roster for the Houston Astros. Love the way they presented that to him. I invite you guys to check that one out from the Astros. Basically, the manager, a spot anyway, called his parents, who are unknown to Cam Smith, waiting outside the room um, while they're in the team or while they're in the clubhouse anyway, and basically said, "Hey, I'm going to go ahead and call this person real quick. We got some announcements as far as who's going to make the team." And he calls Cam Smith's parents to let him know, "Hey, come on into the clubhouse." Cam Smith sees him and immediately starts bawling. Just a great video out there for a young player who really tore the cover off of baseball and earned his spot on that Houston Astros team. This is a type of Houston Astros team I could begin to root for again. I've told you guys before on this channel that it was very difficult to root for the Carlos Correa, Jose Altuve, George Springer led Houston Astros, Martin Maldonado, Justin Verlander, Garrett Cole. That team was very difficult for me to root for. You look back to the year in like 2005 when they brought in Andy Pettitte and Roger Clemens. Those were seen as more, mercenaries, arms for hire kind of thing that Houston really brought in to elevate the talent that they already had. Bagwell, Biggio, Berkman, Richard Hidalgo, Moises Alou, Brad Ausmus, Jeff Kent at one time, Ken Caminiti at one time. That was a very good Astros team, and you could root for a lot of those guys on that ball club. Understandably, it was the late 90s, early 2000s. A lot of PED issues were going on in the sport at the time, but that was a team that didn't have this cocky air about them. You could still really root for that team because they were primarily a homegrown ball club. Fast forward to the 2025 version, or excuse me, 2015 version of the Houston Astros. They did kind of the whole full teardown with Jose Altuve. They bring up George Springer, Carlos Correa, a lot of homegrown talent as well. But they're very much of a different. They're cut from a very different cloth. Very brash, very new, very in your face as far as their style of baseball. And some people like that kind of a thing. And yes, there's a place for some of that in the game, and I do appreciate that from time to time from certain players. But I did not like how they kind of took an us versus the world mentality when they were the ones in the wrong about the whole trash can saga. And I get it, it's not the end-all be-all for the organization, does not define that era for the Houston Astros. But to me, it just spoke volumes about where that team really was. They were no longer the lovable losers who, did the right thing and, bottomed out as a franchise, got the best talent, and made themselves into what they were. Instead, they were the team that got caught cheating and just said, "Hey, it doesn't really matter. Get off our back. Our title's just as good as your title, even though we had these issues." I'm not saying that their championship doesn't matter. I am saying that it should have an impact. Do I think there should be an asterisk next to the World Series? No. I just think that people need to recognize that things happen. Just like with the PED guys, I think that the PED shouldn't be an arbitrary thing. First and foremost, the Hall of Fame is a museum, so act like it. You're there to educate, talk about what happened in the game. And yes, PEDs were a problem in Major League Baseball. So don't just sit there and say, "Oh, well, we can't acknowledge that PED guys, we can't acknowledge and honor them in the Major League Baseball Hall of Fame." Just get over yourself, my friend. I mean, these are issues that need to be solved for the good of the game. Instead of talking about those PED guys for years and talking about how PEDs, should be the reason why they're not in the Hall. How about we just acknowledge as a baseball Hall of Fame, as baseball fans, that it happened and acknowledge that great baseball was still being played. We still cheered. We still booed. We still gave them money to play for our favorite team. They still got to play out their entire careers, just like all the other players in all of Major League Baseball. And just acknowledge that a bad period happened. The Houston Astros, the most recent iteration of the Houston Astros, same kind of thing here. Yes, the trash can thing happened. Do I think it taints everything they ever did? No. Do I think that it should at least be acknowledged as part of their story? Sure. I do think the Astros, though, with this iteration of team, is a lot more likable than they have been in recent years, and I'm excited to see what Cam Smith and Bryce Matthews can really bring from a young positional player aspect. I think they've got a nice mix of Christian Walker coming in and Isaac Paredes, two very valuable pieces. One from the Rays, who was their number one target at the trade deadline last year. He gets flipped to the Cubs. Cubs flip him to the Astros in exchange for Kyle Tucker. Walker, of course, fills a black hole over there at first base that they've had for the last 3 or 4 years. And they finally solved that issue. Do I think they're a better team than they were last year? No. I do think it's probably going to take a year for them to get to where they were offensively. If Cam Smith elevates to what I think he will be, if Bryce Matthews elevates to what I think he will be, I think the Astros will be just fine offensively. Pitching staff, they have plenty of options, sure, but almost all of their top options are going to start the season injured. And I do think they're going to be relying a lot on that depth early in the year. I still think they're a very good team, as you might have seen in our prediction show. I had them still winning a wild card spot. I just don't think they're as nearly as good as a team as they were at the height of their powers with Verlander, Cole, Correa, Springer, among several other Astros of that dynasty. Looking at the standings last year, just want to kind of point out with opening day happening tomorrow, this is the last time you're going to see these standings. Yankees on top, Jays on the bottom. Everything's going to be up in the air. Who knows where these teams fall? No Garrett Cole, no Grayson Rodriguez, no Bayo for the Red Sox. Rays, Franco's story has finally come to a conclusion there with that organization. What are they going to do with Vladdy there in Toronto? Guardians had a great year last year. Can they replicate it this year? Royals added a lot this offseason to that bullpen and added some more contact on base percentage with Jonathan India. Tigers, great pitching. Do they have enough offense? Twins didn't really spend anything at all. Ownership issues, debt. How quickly do they decide to sell some of their assets? And White Sox, one of the worst teams in baseball history. Can they win 60 games this year and be a big improvement? Rangers had a terrible year last year as far as health, poor performance offensively. They really have one of the best offenses in all of the American League. They should be a better team this year. Can Kumar Rocker and Jack Leiter set the world on fire from the starting rotation? Jacob deGrom's back and healthy. What does he have in the tank? Mariners didn't really add offense at all. Their pitching staff is going to be injured to start the year with George Kirby. Astros, lots of starters on the injured list to start the year. A lot of young talent coming up at the big league level as well. Nice additions in Paredes and Walker. Altuve now playing in left field. How will it all shake out? A's ultimately are out of Oakland. They have descended on Sacramento. And this is a team that's going to try to at least be competent for the next couple of years, entering the Las Vegas era of their organization. The Angels, of course, kind of in rebuild mode. I'd be surprised if they win 70 games. But, we'll see what kind of performances they get out of failed prospects that they've been able to acquire from the Braves and other clubs over the last few days. On the NL side, Phillies, some offseason storylines going into the year. Can Trey Turner turn it around from what he did last year? They're really locked up with the contracts they have on the books right now. Are they willing to move in Alec Bohm, be able to bring in some financial flexibility? Can they find a taker for some of their really bad contracts like Taijuan Walker? Nick Castellanos, maybe trade some of their top prospects and free up some ability to take on more salary. Braves are a little bit hamstrung financially. Acuna is going to be back sometime in early June, it sounds like. But the Braves still have a pretty good roster. I like what they did as far as adding some small pieces around the periphery of this team to kind of add some talent and depth to this organization. Mets, injuries in their starting staff. How quickly do they act and add another starter? Nationals, a development year for Wood, Cruz, Abrams, among others. Marlins, all about trading away their starting pitchers. They finished with 62 wins. I think they finished well underneath that this year. I think they'll be in the mid-50s if they keep going the way they are. I think Alcantara could very well be traded at the deadline, but we'll have to see how things work out. Brewers had a great year last year. Do they hold off the sophomore slump? Cubs are all in on 2025. With the addition of Kyle Tucker, are they going to stay all in and add a starting pitcher, which they still desperately need? Cardinals finished a game above 500 last year. I think they're still a good team, but they're in retool mode. If they win 75 games, I think they'll be happy with that. I think if they win 80 games, they'll be happy with that. I think if they win 70 games, I think they'll be happy with that. It's all about developing the talent on the field and figuring out which pieces are there for the long term. Reds, add Terry Francona. A lot of smaller moves around the periphery of this team, but it's going to be about that pitching staff, about Terry Francona interjecting some professionalism in that clubhouse. And I do think they'll have a little bit higher of a win total. How much depends on how big the impact is for Francona and how his health holds out throughout the year. A lot of question marks around his health when he left the Cleveland Guardians. Apparently he's better. I want to see him go through 162-game season to be able to show that he's better and able to hold it down a little bit better than what he did at the end anyway with the Cleveland Guardians. Pirates, 76 wins last year. Jared Jones going to start the season on the injured list for at least 6 weeks. Didn't really add any offense, which they really needed to do. I like Tommy Pham, but again, not enough. They did bring in Horowitz. Again, not enough, but he's going to start the season, I believe, on the injured list as well. But I just don't think they have enough offense, and that's the thing. I think the Pirates really should have invested in that this offseason. Dodgers, all-world team. I don't think I need to go into any further explanation of what they have on their roster. Best lineup, best rotation, best bullpen in the game. They very easily are number one on my power rankings and will stay that way until we see some cracks in the armor. Padres, anyway, a lot of questions about the finances surrounding this team. Finance guys are saying they need to offload a little bit of salary to stay solvent. They have had some they have had some payroll issues in the past, and I do think the finance guys are going to get their way here, and they're going to have to trade away Cease or King to be able to make things work. Maybe Luis Ariz as well. Diamondbacks had a some rough news the other day. Anyway, Jordan Montgomery is going to miss the entirety of the season with Tommy John, so they were unable to offload his salary. I think they absolutely should have not been waiting on that one and just gotten it done early this offseason and not hemmed and hawed about how much they'd have to eat of that entire contract. Because now, guess what? You're on the hook for every little bit of it, and speedy recovery to Jordan Montgomery. I think he'll be back around the All-Star break next year on a free agent deal somewhere. Maybe he goes back to Texas since they're going to have some holes in their rotation next year. We'll have to see what they decide to do there. But good organization overall as far as the Diamondbacks. Bringing in Corbin Burns, Josh Naylor really elevates this team. Really strong bullpen as well. Giants, they make the turning of the page moment anyway from the Farhan Zaidi era. Willie Adames comes in, Justin Verlander. I want to see them be big players in free agency next year. That just means you basically finish where you were this year, maybe a game or two better. Maybe you finish at 500, maybe a little bit better. But I do think the Giants on the outside looking in as far as the postseason. They're a good team. They're just not great. Rockies, bottom of this division. I think they're going to stay at the bottom of this division. Did not like the trade they just made, sending Nolan Jones back to the Cleveland Guardians. I think this is a team that gets in the mid-50s as far as a win total. Again, very rarely do you see teams get in the 50s, let alone the 40s like we saw the White Sox last year. I think there's 2, maybe 3 teams that could get there this year, but we shall see. All right, appreciate you guys joining us this afternoon. If you guys want to hit that like and subscribe, the thumbs up goes a long way to helping us out. We'll be back live this evening to discuss the MLB Power Rankings. That'll be around 6, 7 o'clock, so make sure you turn on your notifications. Follow us on X at UpsideSN and on Facebook, Upside Sports Network. Y'all have a great one out there. We'll see you later on this afternoon. Stay safe out there, everybody.